Okay, we're live. Good morning, good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us on yet another episode of the podcast. And today I have a phenomenal guest with me in the studio. It is Jehiel Oliver, who is the founder and CEO of Hello Tractor. So, guys, I'm just going to read out his bio so you get to know him a bit better before we start out the conversation for today. Uh, Jehiel Oliver is a globally recognized social entrepreneur and the visionary founder and CEO of Hello Tractor. Is a trailblazing agricultural technology company transforming the way smallholder farmers across Africa access mechanized farming services, often referred to as the Uber of tractors. Hello Tractor uses an innovative equipment sharing platform to connect tractor owners with small scale farmers, bridging the gap between on underutilized machineries and millions who need it for food production and rural productivity. With a deep passion for leveraging technology to solve systemic agricultural challenges, Jaher Olivier has earned international recognition. In 2016, he was named one of the Foreign Policy's magazine top 100 global thinkers for his work in promoting inclusive agricultural innovation. His commitment to economic transformation in Africa also led to his appointment by the President Barack Obama to serve on the President's Advocacy Council on Doing Business in Africa, where he changed technology subcommittee, offering strategic guidance on digital development and entrepreneurship across the continent. Before founding Hello Tractor, Mr. Oliver gained valuable experience in investment banking and consulting, honing his business acumen, and now underpins his leadership in agritech space. Beyond his role at Aero Tractor, he remains actively involved in development finance, and social impact initiative, serving on the board of several organizations such as Shared Interest H for H, both of which focus on unlocking investment opportunity in sub-Saharan Africa. Welcome, Mr. Olivier.
It's a
It's
pleasure
such
to
a
be here. Thanks
it's
for
such an
having me.
honor to have you here with me this morning.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. I think my very first question to you would be, what exactly inspired you to start out the venture Hello Tractor? Because just reading out your bio, you have a background in finance and consulting. You could have as well, served in other capacities in other industry, but you chose agriculture. So why exactly did you do that?
Well, I was interested in using commercial markets to have a deeper impact in underserved communities. And for me, finance was my professional training. So I started with working in the microfinance space, really trying to understand how to use capital to unlock opportunities
Okay.
um, for those working and living in the emerging markets. And
Mm,
that was an interesting experience, but it ultimately led to agriculture. Agriculture being in sub-Saharan Africa the biggest contributor to GDP, representing 40% of the continent's GDP, the biggest contributor to jobs in the labor force. 60% of jobs are in agriculture and agro-allied industries. So I started to really think deeply about how to work within the industry to grow the industry so it can employ more people, raise incomes, and really catalyze broader economic growth across Africa. So that's the origin story, if you will, for Hello Tractor.
wow, that's beautiful, beautiful. It's just
Thank
amazing.
you.
Yeah, because it's just amazing to see that you chose to serve that market, which is
Mhm.
okay. There's an opportunity here. So how do we, take advantage of the opportunity and also provide services for underserved community, especially
Mhm.
just like you mentioned within the emerging market? Because agriculture is like one. As much as people say, no, it's very lucrative. There's so much opportunity. A
Is
lot of
it?
investors.
No. I'm joking.
No,
It's
no,
a
yeah,
tough industry. No,
yeah.
I'm saying this because it's a tough industry, right?
I
Like
was about to go
yeah,
there. I was about to go there.
okay,
Like a lot of investors are like, nah, nah. I want to be
yeah,
certain if I put in this amount, I should be able to get in X amount of return on investment. But agriculture, it's so unpredictable. It's profitable, but it's unpredictable in most cases.
very, very unpredictable. You have so many different risks converging on the field, climate, FX, interest rates, commodity prices, pests, disease. I mean, you could just
Oh
keep
my
going
God. Yeah.
on and on. These are all very real risks that can ruin a season and potentially a farmer's entire livelihood. And so, how do you engage with farmers in a way that is sustainable, scalable,
Hmm.
where the value that you create is evenly distributed too, and so equitable, right? And it's a fascinating question to answer. But to your point, I think you rightly point out it's a capital inefficient industry. The margins are really low and the risks are really high. So you got to be really smart about how you engage. You can be profitable. It can be very lucrative. There's a lot of money being made in agriculture. So you got to be smart about it.
Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. So, just piggyback on what you just said, you have to sort of be how can people be more strategic in terms of just knowing what part or what role to play within the ecosystem, because the ecosystem is large.
Hmm. It is large.
So
There's
how
so
can
many
people?
different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things you can do. I think what's key, especially for young people, is you really want to develop an expertise and leverage that depth of knowledge to ensure that you're um, attacking the right problems. And through that full and deep grasp of the problems, the solutions that you come up with are more likely to succeed, right? I think a lot of young people get pushed into different careers, especially entrepreneurship in Africa,
Yeah.
because they don't have a choice. They would much rather just have a job, right? But because the unemployment rates are what they are, they're so high in sub-Saharan Africa, you have a lot of people who don't necessarily have that entrepreneurial DNA who are
Right.
cosplaying entrepreneurship out of necessity, right? And the
Yeah.
key ingredient for an entrepreneur is real obsession, and through that obsession, a mastery of the problem that you're looking to solve. And I would encourage
Mm-hmm.
any young person to de-risk your professional trajectory, whether it be working for someone else or if you choose to take the entrepreneurial path, is to develop that mastery of the problem set that you're looking to solve for, right? And it's a journey. But agriculture is often mistaken as some industry that you can just do without developing a real understanding. And I kind of, the analogy would be you don't wake up one morning and say you want to be a brain surgeon, right? You understand the need to go and get a graduate degree and do your postdoc and your residency at a hospital to train under skilled individuals. You have to reverse engineer that same training and educational journey if you want to go into an agricultural vertical, right? And don't just jump in. Really learn from people who have found success, learn from their mistakes, from their wins, leverage that so you can avoid them moving forward, right? But respect the craft and be willing to dig deep.
Wow. Thank you so much for sort of sharing that with us. So can you now let's go back to Hello Tractor, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So can you sort of break down how the platform works and how does it connect like farmers to tractor owners, like practically, how does it work?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty simple. We sell a fleet management solution to farm equipment owners. That
Okay.
starts with a GPS. monitoring device fitted onto the tractor, and
Okay.
mobile and web applications and mobile applications for the farm equipment owner to remotely monitor and manage their equipment, right? That allows the farm equipment owner
Nice.
to be anywhere and have visibility into their machinery, what it's doing, fuel consumption, theft, maintenance needs, everything. The second part of the platform is the marketplace. So once you become comfortable sending your machinery to far off places, knowing you can monitor all aspects of the machine and its operations, the next question is,
Yeah.
well, how do you make more money with the machine when you do send it out? And that's where our marketplace comes in. We have booking agents scattered throughout these communities, booking these farmers in their community for tractor services. That gives the farmers access to affordable equipment on a service basis. They no longer have to own their equipment.
Okay.
And it's an opportunity for a farm equipment owner to generate more revenue with their equipment. So it's a win-win. And the booking
Mm,
agent sits in the middle and earns a commission. Now, that booking agent, as they book farmers in their community earning that commission, once they reach 1,250 acres, 500 hectares, they can graduate to become tractor owners themselves through our tractor finance program. So it's a way for these booking
mm,
agents, these young people, to also own an asset and literally 10x their take home pay by owning this asset. So it's an incredible way to even empower an entire new category of entrepreneurs in African agriculture, owning, $35,000 tractors,
yeah.
servicing members of their community, bringing tremendous value to their community.
Wow. That's an amazing work you guys are doing with Hello Tractor. You're not just serving the farmers, you're also helping them also get the business side of it right, and also empowering people to get access to opportunities to create economic empowerment for themselves. So that's really, really, really good. Really, really good. So I want your thoughts or your opinions on why is access to mechanization so important for smallholders farmers, your own perception about that, as well as what are some of like the long-term impact that you have seen that has been done through people engaging with Hello Tractor.
Well, I mean, first of all, we operate in Africa primarily in rain-fed production systems. So you have to get your crop established on time, right? Or
Okay.
you miss the rain, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tractors help you plant 40 times faster and at one third the cost of manual labor, which is what the vast majority of farmers rely on. So there's an immediate income and yield bump. Our last customer surveys that came in the fourth quarter of last year showed a 220% income increase for
That's
farmers
good.
who access mechanization and through Hello Tractor. So
Hmm.
that's short term immediate benefit. Within this first season of receiving services, you will see a very material income increase. The second benefit that's longer term, if you think about the biggest contributor to child labor on earth is agriculture. If you don't have the equipment that you need, I don't care if you're in sub-Saharan Africa, Eastern Europe, South America, or even the United States, once upon a time, there were children working those fields. That reality
Yeah.
is still true in sub-Saharan Africa. And
Yeah.
Africa's richest resource is its young population. We have the
True.
fastest growing youth population on earth. That's a
Yeah.
demographic that will serve us very well in the future. But those young
True.
people need to be in school and not on farms. And
Yeah.
agricultural equipment frees up that labor to now be educated, to be that resource to fuel Africa's growth in the future.
Wow, that's really good. Really, really good. I like when you said that the report shows that 200, increase in yield and also in terms of like efficiency. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot, and that's really great. Really, really great. Just
I
see,
think
I think
so.
this, yeah, I think like that's the beauty. I think that's the beauty of innovation and technology. It makes things and systems much more efficient.
Mhm.
Wow, that's really. So, what are some of like the biggest challenges? Because I know doing the work that you do, agriculture on its own comes with a lot of challenges. But with the kind of services that you render, what are some of like the specific challenges that you have encountered or faced, and how are you able to overcome those challenges, or how are you overcoming them?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, agriculture is full of risks, and navigating that landscape of risks is an ongoing challenge. You start with things like FX risk. You're in
Yeah.
Nigeria. The
Mm-hmm.
naira is an incredibly volatile currency. If
Yeah.
we bring in dollars to finance more entrepreneurs to own tractors, we're repaid in naira. So if the naira depreciates against the dollar, it's much harder for us to cover our obligations to our investors, right? That's a real
Yeah.
challenge. So we have to be very thoughtful about how we construct our portfolios. We need to ensure that we have a good balance of currencies, some of
Mm-hmm.
which um, are uncorrelated, and which means if one is moving, if one is strengthening against the dollar, maybe another is weakening against the dollar, so they mitigate some of the risk, mitigates and self hedges.
Yeah.
But that's just one, right? We also have climate risk. You know, being close to the equator, we're more negatively impacted by climate change than most other regions. So,
Mm-hmm.
despite having 65% of the world's arable land, very rich water resources, good soils, we're also more adversely affected by extreme weather conditions, right?
Sure.
And so, as a business, we need to be understanding of that, and we need to have asset allocation models that allow us to respond to a drought in one region or to floodings in another region by allocating tractors away from those regions being negatively affected and pushing those assets into a higher performing part of the country. And we always have to stay on top of that. But there's all sorts of risks that we have to navigate. I think the key piece, and that's why I said, just as advice for the listeners, go as deep as possible. Be Have insatiable curiosity, because that's what's going to help fuel the learnings to help build out these mitigation strategies to these risks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for
Yeah.
intellectually curious person, it's no more fascinating industry to work in than African
Mm-hmm.
agriculture, because there's so many of these interesting problems that you have to solve for. It's just a never
Yeah.
ending jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Like in agriculture, the moment you feel like you have a hang of one challenge, it seems as though another one emerges, and you're like, okay, there's this. I still have this to deal
Mhm.
with. Okay, I still have this to deal with. It's just, I think
Yep.
it keeps you curious and just keeps you in that at the edge where you keep learning how to be much more effective as a leader and how to be more
Mhm.
innovative business person. So I think agriculture does that for you.
Absolutely.
It does that for
Absolutely.
you. All right. So my next question to you at this time is, um, from your experience, right?
Mhm.
What technology solution truly is inclusive in agricultural context, especially in rural Africa?
Mhm.
So what would you
Hello
say?
Tractor. Hello Tractor.
Of course.
What you what you expect me to say? What you expect me to say? Hello Tractor, of course. You mean besides Hello Tractor?
Okay. Besides a tractor, yes. Besides a tractor.
I think we need better macroeconomic policies that'll support everybody. That's as
Mm,
inclusive as it becomes. If the
okay.
base rates were lower because the governments were more responsible in how they borrow, then interest rates across the entire financial system would be lower because
Mm,
everybody's interest rates are priced off of how the government borrows, right? So if the government is able to bring down their interest rates, their cost of capital, that flows through the system. The same can be said for things like infrastructure. If you put in irrigation infrastructure, right? If you put in roads, right? If
mhm.
you put in storage and publicly available warehousing for grains,
Yeah.
that benefits everybody. So I think at the macro kind of national level, you have
Mhm.
really smart policies,
Yeah.
infrastructure investments primarily by governments, and
Good.
then there's all sorts of individual innovations that are more equitable by design. Hello Tractor focuses on smallholder farmers. That's where the bulk of the we believe that's where the bulk of the opportunity is in sub-Saharan Africa. We want to be a scaled business serving tens of millions of farmers. Right now, we serve 2 million farmers. We should be at 20
Mhm.
million the next time we speak, right? And you don't get
Yeah.
that unless you focus on where the farmers are, and most of these farmers are smallholders. So you have to design a solution that's inclusive, that's in operating,
Mhm.
just that operational design, but that's also technology infrastructure, right? And an example of that is in our booking platform, we have what's called farm clustering, so that
Mhm.
a booking agent can go out and book 100 1 hectare farms, and that will algorithmically look the same as somebody who booked one 100-hectare farm. And the
Mm.
economics for the tractor owner is the same, right? So you bring
Mhm.
equity by design. And that's at the
Yeah.
tech stack all the way through to your operating teams, hiring from the communities that you serve, even at the leadership team. Because we're focused on Africa, our leadership team is from the continent, right? That just makes sense. And so
Yeah.
everybody on our team has proximity to the problems because in many instances they've lived those problems, they've experienced those
Yeah.
problems firsthand,
Yeah.
and my job is to allocate capital to make sure
Mm.
that those smart people have the resources that they need to continue to build and illustrate their brilliance, right?
Yeah.
And I just write checks.
Mm. That's good. Good. It's just good to hear that part of the leadership thing is still from the continent as well. Good to hear that as
Mhm,
well. Good. Great. 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 So, how do you ensure trust and accountability between
mhm.
the farmers and the tractor owners using your platform? How does that work?
Yeah, well, agriculture is a trust-based industry. So, understanding that early on, we decided to use booking agents as our touch point to the community, right?
Mm.
And leverage the relationship capital that already exists between individuals who are from these communities, who know the farmers know them. There's already a trust exchange built over many years that we can
Yeah.
build our business on top of, right? And it would take too long to try and organically build that with individual farmers, right, as a business. So identifying those people that are already in the community, making sure you're building out a playbook where you can profile booking agents who will find success because they already have that trust is a big part of our success as a business. I think internally accountability is equally important, and that's where things like performance management, we do OKRs, objectives, and key results to
Yeah.
manage our team's performance. And the most important thing about performance management, particularly as it relates to accountability, is, as a leader, you have to set a clear vision for the
Yeah.
organization, right? But then you need to have performance management infrastructure to ensure that people's individual contributions are well aligned with the vision, right? We
Yeah.
hire ambitious people, we hire hard
Mhm.
workers. You're
Yeah.
brilliant, you're here, and you're working towards a goal. The question is, does that goal align with the organizational goals? And that's my,
Yeah.
my job, my leadership's team, their job is to make sure those OKRs are in clear alignment with Hello
Yeah.
Tractor's broader objectives. So every individual
Mm,
contributor is working
yeah.
towards the same broader vision.
That's good. That's good. That's good. I like how you talked about the internal structure as well as the external structure, just ensuring that everybody's aligned to the vision. Really good.
Yeah.
So, have there been any unexpected outcomes, or let's say success stories from Hello Tractors that users can, uh, are deeply moved by or has surprised you over the years?
We didn't think so when we launched our pay as you go tractor finance product almost 4 years ago. We didn't think it would be as successful as it was. We really
Okay.
anticipated slowly growing this product, learning from our mistakes.
Yeah.
We wanted to start with a $500,000 to test, the financing of, 20 or so tractors. And we ended up doing in our first year, instead of doing $500,000, we did $1 million. And then the next year we did $4 million. And then the
Oh.
following year we were up to $14 million. And we just recently participated in a benchmarking report where Dahlberg and Aceli, Africa,
Mhm.
did an assessment of the top, 40 to 50 lenders in agriculture across Africa. And Hello Tractor ranked number one in reach. We reach 100% unbanked individuals. We rank number one
Great.
in credit quality,
That's
repayments.
good.
Our customers repay at a higher rate, and
Mm,
we have the smallest number of defaults. Profitability, right? We make more than even the commercial banks.
mm,
And I think it proves that there's massive opportunity, but you got to dig deep. You got to, and I'm gonna
mm,
keep that's the reoccurring theme for this conversation is
yeah.
understand the vertical that you play in,
Hmm.
focus and use that depth of knowledge to design innovations that are suitable for the vertical, right? So
Mm,
a commercial bank does lending across all industries, right? At Hello Tractor, we said, no, we're only financing tractors. In fact, we're only financing tractors and combines of this size and these brands. And we were able to build an entire kind of operating and technology infrastructure around these assets and unlock uh, a ton of value through financing because we had that depth of understanding.
mm. Just like you said, I think that the key things that our listeners should take out of this conversation is a person needs to fully understand the problem they're trying to solve and then
Mm-hmm.
create different kinds of solutions around it and just be innovative because I want to believe that in the course of your operations the last couple of years there are lots of things that um, you guys have been innovative about. Have there
Mm-hmm.
been a couple of let's say pivots or things you had to like, because when you're building a product, there's some features you're like, oh, okay, this would work. Then you test it in the market doesn't adopt
Mm-hmm.
it early. So have there been any point where there were some sort of pivots or coming up with features that you didn't envision at the beginning when you started out Hello Tractor?
Tons. We started with our own tractor.
Okay.
It was called a smart tractor. It had our technology embedded onto it. It was the wrong machinery for the market
Mm,
um, and the crops that we were working within.
okay.
So we had to discontinue that after a couple years. We had a booking platform that was SMS based. We had to pivot away from that to
Mm,
focus on mobile apps that allowed us to gather
yeah.
more data so that we could increase the transparency of these book farmers in the workflow. Farmers,
Okay.
tractor owners needed that. So there's been a number of pivots along the way. Um, are you there? Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, get back.
Yeah.
What happened? There's no lights.
Yeah.
Uh, there's no lights. Boy,
Yeah.
that
So
whistle go off. It's like a party whistle. That little whistle go off when the lights come back on. Nigeria. Okay, let's go. Let's get back to it.
yeah. So I'd asked you the question like the pivots, and so you talked about you guys came up with like a feature that bookings were done with SMSs, and the
Hmm.
travel. Okay. So I asked that question because for listeners on the call, sometimes people feel like when they have a certain idea and they start out with that idea, they have to like stick with it, even when they see that the market adoption of it is relatively slow or is
Yeah.
not good as they have envisioned. So there's that need to sort of iterate or just pivot to something that would definitely work as long as the grand vision is still in front of you. Anything else that
Hmm.
moves you to that direction, it's a good part to take.
Yeah. I mean, you can't reasonably assume that the first idea that you have is perfect and it requires no adjustments. There's no need for gathering feedback from actual customers who say, could you tweak this thing? Or, yeah. So, I mean, I think that would be a foolish way to approach building solutions, particularly in the world of innovation, right? Which is what
Yeah.
this podcast is all about. By definition, if you're an innovator, you're doing something that's never been done before. You can't
Yeah.
expect to do that right. You can't expect to have a perfect product or service. It's never been done before. There's no playbook. You're building the playbook as you go, and you'll likely make a ton of mistakes. And the whole point of um, going into more innovative spaces is to be that first mover, have the courage to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, the wisdom to learn from those mistakes and build better, right? But if you're the kind of person that doesn't have the courage to step out of that comfort zone and learn from your mistakes by doing things differently, then you shouldn't be an innovator. You should do something that's more predictable, right? You should just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's tons of jobs that don't require creativity and new thinking.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. True. True. Thank you. So, what advice would you give to young African entrepreneurs looking to solve local problems through technology?
I would say just be self-aware, right? Be self-aware because you have to be bold and courageous, as I was saying earlier, to find success, to do something
Mm,
different in the innovation space, right? But you also have to be self-aware and humble to recognize areas where you should be learning and not leading, right? Learning, not leading, and knowing how to differentiate that requires a tremendous amount of self awareness. I think that's going to be number one. Number two is patience, because you could have the perfect product, you could have the perfect service that you offer, but maybe the conditions around you aren't ready yet, right? And you need
yeah.
patience to
Mm,
continue to push through the challenges. One of the things that I kind of encourage folks who are earlier in their journey is, stay focused on the thing that you're working on, as I was mentioning, so you can dig deep. But it's
yeah.
also important to stay focused on that thing because you'll likely solve the problem, but then uncover so many other problems within that vertical. And
Yeah.
you have to, it's almost like ticking off boxes. And that takes
Yeah.
time, right? That takes time. And the benefit of that is if you figured out how to solve not just the one problem that you set out to solve, but all
Yeah.
these other 15, 20 small problems that need to be solved for that one big problem to really
Yeah.
unlock the value, you
Yeah.
go through that process, which takes time and it's a function of time in to get product out, you have this incredible defensive moat around your business. You have this durable foundation that you can build on top of. It's going to be very
Yeah.
hard for other people to recreate, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't sit around worrying about people stealing my ideas because you're not stealing the ideas right there in front of you. I'm not hiding it, but
Yeah.
I'm making a bet that I have more perseverance. I have more endurance than somebody coming in trying to make a quick buck, right?
Yeah.
And so
Great.
I don't I don't meet that many people that are as obsessive about smallholder mechanization than me. I just don't. It would be a delight for me to meet that person because I would just there's no shortage of money I would want to give them to come work at Hello Tractor, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it would even and if they didn't want to work at Hello Tractor and create a competitor, it would be a pleasure to compete with somebody like that. But it's
Yeah.
so rare, right? Because I obsess over this one problem. And I'm
Mhm.
willing to go to lengths that most people aren't willing to go in order to solve the problem, right? And I would
Yeah.
encourage any innovator across all verticals to harness that same obsession and identify the things that you're passionate enough about to have that obsessive quality about
Yeah.
the thing, right?
Mhm. Wow. So just focus and be obsessed about the problem you're trying to solve. So even when other problems unravel themselves, but still be focused on what it is you set out to create solutions for.
Yeah.
That's good. But you also mentioned something very important, which is, stay learning. So is there a place for like coaching and mentorship within the agricultural space as well, just the same we have
Yeah.
in other spaces?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. It's tons of people who work in agriculture who are smart. You need to figure out the ones that you should be talking to. And the
Yeah.
smarter they are, the higher up they are in the food chain, excuse
Yeah.
the pun, the more you need to be prepared when you approach that person for an insight. So do your
Yeah.
homework, right? There's nothing worse than wasting somebody's time who's already found success, who's because they probably found success because they know how to manage time and they don't like to waste it, right?
Mhm.
So, I spend a lot of time with younger people, people who are earlier in their journey. And it's incredibly inspiring to see people with fresh ideas, all the energy, right? Equally so, it is nothing more frustrating than having somebody who just is like, "Can we jump on a phone call for an hour?" And you get on the call, and you're like, "Okay, what questions you got?" And they're clearly not prepared. They haven't done the research on their business, on yours, and it's kind of frustrating because I don't have a free hour. I got two young kids, and I got a young company. That's where I spend my time. If I'm pulling time away from those two things, my kids or my company, it should be for somebody that is at least putting forth the effort, right?
Yeah.
But there's tons of folks that I'm sure would be more than willing to mentor. I personally have an entire army of mentors that I look up to, and when I engage with them, I make sure I'm prepared. I've thought through what the conversation. I've done research on them. I've done research on how my questions can potentially be answered by them because of their experiences.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's other businesses that you can learn from, particularly in the public markets. If you're a publicly traded company, let's say a U.S. traded company, I
Yeah.
listen to earnings calls. I listen to top CEOs talk about their businesses and their priorities so that when
Yeah.
I'm talking to leaders in the farm equipment space, if I'm talking to somebody from John Deere, they're our largest investor. I want to know
Yeah.
more about John Deere than they know about John Deere, right? So,
True,
and
true,
the,
true.
the information is public. So read it, listen to the earnings calls when the CEOs get up there and talk to equity investors and the equity markets and get a sense of what's going on, the strategic priorities, and use that information to your advantage, right?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So we have a couple of questions just to run through before we close out on today's session. How do you sort of balance? profitability and impact in social enterprises like Hello Tractor. And so, can you give us like then how can agri-tech truly scale while staying people centered?
I'm not sure I have to trade profit for impact. I think there's a time dimension to developing high impact businesses because of some of the challenges that I alluded to earlier. If you're
Yeah,
working within underserved communities, you can bet there's probably a number of reasons why that community is underserved. Some of it is bias, but some of it is just, man, this is a risky place to work. And so you
yeah,
have to take time to figure out the risks and mitigate those risks. So the time dimension to your profit realization and maximization is pushed out, but you still should expect to earn above market profits. It just might take longer to build that business. But now you have a defensible business. So theoretically, you should be earning those market leading profits for a longer period than somebody who has a non high impact business where the risks aren't as deep and understood, right? And so I don't think there's much of a trade off, but I do think that for young people getting into innovative businesses, I think it's important to have a tremendous amount of conviction around what you're doing, and a lot of your enthusiasm should be for more than just making a quick buck, because those tend to be very short-lived
yeah,
ambitions, right? It is really hard. I mean, there are some people who can get out of bed every day for $1, right? Like, I just want to make as much money as possible. That's actually not as common as you would think. Most
mm,
people, once they get comfortable, their work ethic and the amount of effort they're willing to put in starts to taper off, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
you see people who have arrived at some level of success or have even uh, stepped into success maybe through inheritance. They don't work as hard as the person who's lower on the totem pole really fighting to get to that point, right? And
true.
if you want to have outside success, not just be comfortable, but if you want to have outside success, you should be driven by something more than just an incremental dollar, because there's
Yeah,
not that many people that are going to pursue, that are going to put forth the effort to pursue and achieve excellence in their field for just the incremental dollar, right?
mm, yeah,
There's not that many people.
great.
So if you want to achieve excellence, identify those things that that are truly going to motivate you, and oftentimes those align very well with impact.
That's good. That's good. I like how you talked about the fact that innovators and agripreneurs don't have to trade profitability for impact, but you just have to know that your profitability might move forward, but
Mhm.
you don't trade it. And I think that's where the tension is for some people that are just in for it for the money. Because when they get in, the first couple of years, nothing is coming in like, oh my God, I don't think I want to deal with this anymore. And just like
Yeah,
and in most cases, they might just be headed towards like a break even or a breakthrough point, and they just sort
mhm.
of let that go. So for
Yeah, and
anybody,
let me be
okay,
clear, because I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, because my background is finance. There is a time value of money, right? So if you are building something that has delayed profit, there is a financial cost to delayed profits. But I want
mm,
to emphasize that those delayed profits are more durable. They are more, you can protect them, they're more defensible,
yeah,
because you had to, as those profits were being delayed, you were building out that infrastructure. You're de-risking the business and the industry with new innovations. So in a short period of time, it is not as commercial. It's a real sacrifice because there's delayed gratification. So you need to capitalize your business with the expectation that the profit outcome and the commercial scale is going to be delayed, and your capital strategy should match that delayed gratification, right? So, and that's why venture capital often fails in agriculture, because especially in African agriculture, A typical VC fund life is 10 years. That
Yeah.
means in 10 years, that venture capitalist, that general partner at that VC has to return that money with profit to their LPs, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're building in agriculture, it might take you. I've been doing this business for 11 years. So if I would have taken venture capital in the first year, by now I would have very angry investors who are saying, Jehiel, come on, like I got to return money. I needed that money like 4 years ago, right?
Mm,
And so there's also, I don't think there's a trade off, but you do have to recognize time value of money and acquiring the right capital for your business and the industry that you're in.
mm. Wow. So from what you've said now, I think every social impact entrepreneur, they have to have a sense of understanding of finance a bit.
Yeah,
Because I think
it's
I think
important.
that's like, important.
It's important.
Yeah. So you can get things right from the get go. Just get it right from the get go.
Right.
Wow. This is happens to
Wow.
me all the time on the sessions because yeah, it's like a learning experience for me as well. As much as it is for the listeners and audience, it's like a
Yeah.
learning experience for me. Every single session, most times, feels like a master class. Just having like a personalized master class for the the expert I
That
have
means you're
on
doing your that means you're doing your job. So good for you. Cheers to you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so what role? I think you've talked a bit about this earlier on, but I want you to touch it much more specifics. So, what role do you
Hmm.
think the governments, NGOs, and private investors should play in terms of scaling access to mechanization across Africa?
Well, I mean, mechanization is could be summarized as an ecosystem, and you have players, you have stakeholders within those ecosystems. I think when I think about government's role is to create the enabling environment within the ecosystem. And that's why I talked about things like macroeconomic policy, interest rates, infrastructure. These are all very real examples of how you create an enabling environment, right? And then when you talk about impact investors down to NGOs and philanthropic capital, they're de-riskers, right? They catalyze the innovation by deploying highly risk tolerant capital to test innovations, to support entrepreneurs who live out there on that risk frontier, right? And as those entrepreneurs develop things and solutions to these problems, then they can switch over to the commercial markets for scaling of that solution. And it's a
Yeah,
sequential journey, right?
yeah.
Start with risk tolerant capital because you're a high risk bet, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Have confidence in yourself, but recognize that you have absolutely no idea if this is going to work or not. So you should have
Yeah.
capital that is tolerant to that risk. And then
Mm,
as you mature your idea and you have good product market fit and predictable customers who are paying a predictable amount for what you're building, then you can start to fold in more commercial capital. And it may not be, you may not jump from uh, philanthropic or risk tolerant capital straight to commercial. You might have intermediate steps like impact investors, and there's an entire spectrum of impact investors before you get to purely commercial capital. But you
mm,
have to understand the broader spectrum, that trajectory, and along every checkpoint on that journey, you're doing an
yeah.
assessment of the risk profile of the business, and what
Yeah.
capital you should be using as an entrepreneur to fund that next phase, right? And the next phase, and the next phase. And the government is there to create the cover, the enabling
Mm,
environment as you take that journey. They're paving
mm.
the road for you to
Yeah.
walk that journey.
That's really good. Really, really good. Really good. And I think this would be my last question for you today, which is for our listeners, whether they are farmers, innovators, or policymakers, what's one action they can take right now to be part of the transformation in Africa agricultural future?
I would say bet on young people, right? Bet on young people. They're the future, and sometimes that bet is not just cash. Oftentimes, it's not cash. Actually, young people will always say they just need money. I don't believe that, but they might need your time. They might need your insights. They might need to learn from your experiences. They might need, for you to take a bet to test their products in your supply chain or distribution channel. But bet on young people. I think that's where the resources, Africa's richest resources are. And so, but in order for us to be able to truly leverage that resource for the benefit of not just Africa, but for the world, we have to invest in these young people. So I would encourage stakeholders who are older and more mature in their journey to reach back and support these young people doing important things because that's going to be the future.
I, you gave me an answer I wasn't even expecting. But it's like the most fascinating. Yeah, like because this is like the last question I ask every guest. But
Yeah.
your answer, have never gotten your answer. Not in the way you placed it, like bet on young people, like giving back. Ensure, because I feel like that's the way to ensure sustainability of whatever it is that we're trying to build. That
Yeah,
what you did, yeah, and
for sure. For sure.
that's a succinct way to put it. And I know that I said that's my last question. I also like asking this question as well. This is the final one. This is the final one, Olivia. This is the final one. And I believe you will answer it in less than a minute, which is there's so many because it's the essence, it's the reason why I do this podcast, right? There's so many
Mhm.
young people that believe that agriculture is the pathway to like penury, right? There's nothing there for them. There's no way they're going to make a good life out of agriculture and they don't believe in it. And so, my question to you is what would you say to such a person as a young person that will get in contact with this session, whether the replay or watching live, that they don't believe that agriculture is a viable means to economic empowerment?
Don't do it. Let us make the money. Stay out. I'm not trying to convince competitors to come into my market. Stay out. We're making money, so I don't really.
Oh my God.
I think for anybody who does research, if your takeaway is that there's no opportunity here, then don't engage. That's the beauty of operating in a free market. Do something else. I enjoy agriculture. I'm deploying my time, capital, and God-given talents to developing this business and other businesses within agriculture. I love it. I'm passionate about the potential. I'm not here to convince other people to be in agriculture. If they don't see the opportunity, go do something else. I don't know. Go be a DJ. I don't know. Make a mixtape.
I love how you give unconventional answers to question. Like, I'm not here to convince you. Like, do whatever it is you like. Well,
I
okay.
mean, I'm not your career counselor, bro. Do whatever you want to do. We good over here. We good over here. Yeah, but
Well, well, that's really good. Really, really good. And I think to our audience, you've heard him. He's his own conventional way of saying there's something here, and think of what skill set or expertise that you have that can be leveraged within the agricultural ecosystem. Because one thing I believe about the ecosystem is, regardless of the skill sets that you have, your expertise, there's always somewhere within the ecosystem to deploy that skill set. So, dear young person listening to us today,
yeah,
please do.
and, and let me clarify what I was saying because I'm also a very unserious human at times. I have two, as I was mentioning, I got two. I got an 8-year-old daughter and I got a 5-year-old daughter. Right. My job is to share my experiences with them, create a safe walled garden for them to explore, and ultimately do what they want to do with their life. I'm not
Yeah.
here to dictate, convince them to do anything, right? I expose them to as much information as possible. I try and create a healthy environment for them to grow, thrive. It's up to them to make their own decisions. And certainly, if I believe that for my own children, I would apply the same reasoning to somebody who's saying they want to be they're resistant to working in a specific industry. Fine, don't do it. Do something else. Right? I'm sure you like if you're a brilliant piano player and I'm asking you to be an agronomist, shame on me. Right?
Yeah.
We just missed out on the next Mozart because I was trying to convince Mozart to be Massey Ferguson.
Okay, okay. I get your
You know?
context.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure, I get your context. But however, I'm going to speak of this from a Nigerian standpoint.
Okay.
There people that are currently studying, let's say, agronomy, fishery, animal science, horticulture in Nigerian universities that they don't see anything, that they don't see the possibility of working with that. So we have agriculturists that are probably customer service work at the bank, or they're planning to go work in the bank, or some of them are just
Hmm.
planning to maybe learn some tech skills, whether data analysis, product management. Those are the kinds
Yeah.
of people that I'm speaking, that I'm trying to say, okay, let's have a conversation with them. So rather
But we
than
just
thinking
did.
about,
We just spent an hour talking about the Hello
yeah,
Tractor story. That's enough
yeah,
of a seedling to be planted in fertile soil. And the
yeah,
fertile soil is somebody who's interested but does not necessarily know about the opportunity. So we've now spent an hour sharing that opportunity. Some people say that sounds exciting. I want to learn more, right? And then they can dig in, and the internet is free. They can go throughout ChatGPT and learn as much as they can possibly consume on this or other parts of agriculture. Some people might say, you know what? I like customer service, right? And my thing is, stay in customer service. Like, I don't want people in agriculture that need to be convinced of being in
yeah,
agriculture. I'm not trying to drag people along. I don't have
yeah,
time for that. We move fast. Hello Tractor, if you talk to any of our employees, they will be the first to tell you it's one of the best opportunities, but it's also a demanding opportunity.
mm,
If you fall short, you have to go. When we talk
mm,
about performance management and OKRs, that's not lip service. If you don't reach your performance targets, you will be let go. There's no sorry, I'm sorry, sir. No, none of that. We can still be friends, but you have to leave Hello Tractor, right? And so I don't want unmotivated people that you have to convince. That's not my job. These are
mm,
adults. You are a young person. Yes, you are full of opportunity and potential. Yes, everything ain't for everybody. That's what I was taught growing up.
yeah.
And so I would apply that logic to young people who are coming up.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Mr. Oliver. It's been an enlightening, insightful conversation with you today. I've learned so much about Hello Tractor, and I believe our audience has also learned a lot about it. And also, just more than learning about Hello Tractor, I've also learned a bit more about understanding effective business models and even financing for innovative endeavors within the agricultural ecosystem. So thank you for your time, thank you for your expertise, and thank you for the commendable work that you're doing, not with Hello Tractor, for Africa and for Africans as well.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the platform. I think this is an important platform to reach more people with stories and share all these learnings. Right, these are communal learnings that hopefully others can benefit from.
So yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Cool.